that a reflection of the society that we live in, where everybody seems to be scrounging around for any tiny bit of crumb that is left by those in position of leadership?
There's no society that I know of where progress is alienated from ideas. It is the ideas that drive those progress. It is immaterial whether you have a Herculean, an uphill challenges to deal with. If the ideas that the youths have decided to accept now does not properly wire them in the direction of constructive interventions, for that long they will be bogged down by the mundane challenges that they have, allowed them. If you take this nonce that I mentioned, for instance, there were moments in this country, long before some of us even entered the university, where national issues are not just identified, they are pursued to its logical conclusion, carrying the entire nation.
Exactly.
SAP is one of them. I wasn't in the university when SAP came, but we were inspired. Okay, well, just died. The former nonce president. I had the privilege to contact him before he passed on, because there were people who still believed that the reinvention of the youth movement was started by those who dramatized capacity when they were there. And so, you won't talk about money, because then they hadn't any money. In short, there are just few universities I did not visit in this country in the course of student movement. We were entering lorries. We were jockeying from one campus. So people don't know the university that I actually passed on from, except that it has to be reported in the case laws. So I do not want to patronize them. I do not want to take them away from the challenges that they have imposed on them. And it is for that reason that issues that we dealt with before we left, for instance, arbitrary increase in school fees. How dare you? My first case in the university was because Gunwork, a sole administrator, imposed more than 3,000% increase in the tuition fee. So no, this can happen. As a matter of fact, as law students, we had read the University of Nigeria Act and found that as a sole administrator who had disbanded the Senate and done away with the governing council, you can't personally take decisions on finance without collaboration with those other bodies. And that was the basis of the legal action. So I had thought that before we assist them in further depleting their...
So that we don't turn this into a debate on youth.
Exactly.
Let me just ask you one final question.
Yes.
The dumbing down of our education system. When you dumb down education, what do you expect to get out of it? You expect to get a very, very dumb set of young people that will not be inspired to drive and achieve the same kind of things that you and I in the 70s, 80s, and 90s aspired to do and went all the way out, like you're saying. I was on train several times. Now, I'd like you to just respond to that. Dumbing down of our education, what do you think it could have done to our young people?
No person will run away from the validity of the propositions you have made. No person. As a matter of fact, to paint the poverty of the situation more carefully, is to remind you about the few incidences that have happened in our respective universities. One, the university that I attended, University of Nigeria, just woke up one day and heard that a supervising minister of education had removed the pro-chancellor. The universities are not hanging in the air. They are creations of law. In the University of Nigeria Act, as applicable to virtually all the federal universities, you can't do that. It is only the visitor, who is the president, that can suspend, that can remove a pro-chancellor.
So relating that
yes,
to
I'm
the
relating
dumbing
it.
down.
Yes, I'm relating it to say that by far more than the policy of the government in relation to education, you still have transgressions that depict the excesses of managers of education in such a way that we don't even understand whether they have clear interest in improving education. And that was just coming on the heels of the protracted ASU strike that took about 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. So I agree with you perfectly. And to say
but
that,
all that having been said, I want to make notes here that the advisory committee took cognizance of the realities of Nigeria and still made provisions for there to be more than enough youths.
Which is what number? What is more than
Now,
enough?
every state, every state delegation, you have to have a youth. That was what we recommended. A number of youths, we gave certain numbers. NANS, we identified different organizations, and we said this number, this number, this number. But then we made it mandatory for different interest groups to include youths and women in their lists. Do you notice that even women were not included in certain state governments' lists? So it is not just a problem of the convening body. It's a problem also of the participatory interest groups, whether government or civil society. People are still not prepared to give up these strangleholds they have on whether power or symbols of power. It is therefore up to the different groups like women, youths, and so on to make themselves become more relevant. In saying more relevant, I'm not asking anybody to call for an Arab Spring, but you can make yourself so visible and make yourself virtually indispensable that whether we like it or not, you'll be accommodated. You know, Lyndon Johnson, one of the most astute politicians I know, I've studied, said it's better to have them inside out than outside piecing in. So everybody who wants peace and wants, the other peace, everybody who wants it tries to accommodate those elements that would in any way create a rocking of the boat when they are trying to chart a course. It is because we don't have enough people who are really concerned about the common good. There's too much concern, especially amongst youth groups, about self-aggrandizement. And nobody is going to pander to that. People respond to things based on the value, the capacity of what you can do, either to improve the situation or to be a nuisance to the situation. And I think our youths and a lot of other interest groups have not helped themselves, but they are well represented in the conference.
Okay, Ms. Oni, the Northern Elders Forum, their reaction to all of this was rather strange, don't you think? Because they said they dismissed the national conference and said that it lacked constitutional basis and any form of legitimacy, and that the outcome, the reps were not going to speak for the entire North. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's the first thing to say is that I think it's unfortunate. Unfortunate because I thought there were sufficient consultations made. The committee went around, they sounded the opinion of various groups, interest groups in the country, and my own understanding was that those things were reflected. And let me say that this outright dismissal, you see, there are some of us who have reservations as to what actually the conference can achieve. But then, even the mere idea of a talk shop where Nigerians can get together, because you see, the work of nation building is never a finished business. We need to talk. It does not matter to what ends and purposes. If only to let off steam, we need to continually to engage ourselves. That's my own idea of what this conference is all about. You see, all these grand dreams about whether it's going to be a constitutional, it will produce a constitutional outcomes. I think those ones are even secondary. Nigerians just need to let off steam. I don't have any illusions as to what it will achieve. Whether, for instance, some of the problems that are inbuilt into the current actuarial framework will ever be addressed. I don't even see it happening. Okay, but we still need to talk. And that was why I found it a bit strange that the Northern Elders will, with the wave of the hand, dismiss. And I had some of the contributions from some of the leaders, I felt a bit